Hello everyone! My name is Jocelyn, you may call me Joy, and today's video I'm going to be talking about constructed things, specifically social constructs. Now, I don't really want to get into the whole debate about meanings or semantics about what is a social construct, because I think it's more useful to just give you a few examples of my favourites and hopefully you'll get it from there. Now, being that I am a leftist making a YouTube video about social constructs, I do promise not to talk too much about race and gender. That being said, this is a conversation that I want to build upon what the works of Philosophy Tube has already done. So, on the 9th of July 2021, Philosophy Tube released a video called Social Constructs. And in the intro, Abigail quoted a forum discussion that was on a website called Mumsnet, and that discussion topic was "Mother is a social construct, discuss." And Abigail uses this particular question to introduce the concept of metaphysics, but she doesn't actually address the specific conversation at hand, which is what I want to do. Now, she deliberately did this, I think, to teach the ways in which people have looked at social constructs, not because she was avoiding the question. So let's start with something that we should all be familiar with, because if we haven't done it, then we definitely have been on the receiving end of it from some form or another. Parenthood. The forum question itself prompted a response from one, you can only assume, pretty angry respondent that says, "Carrying and birthing my child was not a fucking social construct." This quote actually assumes quite a lot, i.e. that motherhood is predicated on carrying and birthing children. But is it? Actually, no. And if you can see where I'm going with this, congrats to you, smarty pants. So I would argue that raising children has way more impact on whether or not someone is a mother. Think about the language that we use commonly. Foster mothers, adoptive mothers, stepmothers, all mothers with no pregnancy or birth required. Similarly, pregnant women are referred to as mothers-to-be, i.e. not mothers yet. Surrogates carry the fetus to term, but they then don't have any direct DNA lineage. Now, this might sound like nitpicking to you, but to use the example from Abigail's video, unborn fetuses don't give Mother's Day cards. The idea of motherhood, therefore, is predicated on something more than or other than having a direct ancestral lineage, being pregnant, and giving birth. It's just that in most cases, raising a child does directly follow pregnancy and birth. So these individual time periods and experiences do get clustered in with the whole concept of motherhood. Furthermore, what about people who get pregnant and then give the baby up for adoption? Sometimes referred to as a birth mother. Is it fair to call this person a mother at all? Did they do any of the mothering post-birth? Is squeezing life out of your birth canal enough to inherit that label? When, somebody who hasn't done that, but has, fed the child, clothed the child, changed the nappies, walked the child to school, taught them about letters and numbers, gave them hugs, set them boundaries, put plasters on injuries, like all of those activities that constitute mothering or parenting, I should say, in some obligatory SJW fashion, because this wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't point out that not all people who give birth are women. And it would be more fair to call those people fathers or parents or something like that. Because trans and non-binary people do in fact exist. Money. One of my favourite social constructs. That is, to explain. So ubiquitous to our society is money that we all understand what it is. These little pieces of paper and metal, just with numbers on them that represent capital value, almost arbitrarily agreed upon, used in exchange for goods and services. In a capitalist society, people with lots of money have access to more luxuries and better opportunities than other people who haven't as much. And this isn't fair. Money places value on a person on the basis of wealth, not inherent personhood, or because we who live in this society not only accept that this value exists, but for those who see injustice in this system, like I do, still have absolutely no way to opt out of participating in this charade or extricate ourselves from this society. You know, living off-grid, growing your own vegetables, maybe even get a goat for milk or cheese, like the rustic rural way of life that could potentially be obtained without money. All that still realistically requires a lot of startup capital in order to do. Now, of course, when I'm talking about money as a social construct, I don't mean that it's not real. Of course it is. The effects of money, just like the effects of all social constructs, still have real effects on us as people. And that would all come at the exchange of giving up the benefits of living in a society. You know, friends, hospitals, conveniences, mobile phones, electricity. And again, I know you could have solar panels for electricity to supply yourself with power, but you still need money in order to buy those solar panels. You may be able to grow your own tomatoes, you cannot grow your own solar panels. Thus, that is the deep irony of money. But that, the benefit of society thing, does in fact relate to what Abby of Philosophy Tube said in a different video of hers called The Hidden Rules of Modern Society, released on the 14th of June this year. The gist of my point in bringing that up is that it is impossible to properly consent to participating in the social contract, but it's also impossible to escape. I may not agree with the principles of capitalism, but I can't stop using money just because I don't like it, or because I think it's unfair. Money, the inherent value of money, doesn't exist. Like, money isn't simple. Inflation reduces the value of money. Digital tracking of funds means that tiny little pieces of plastic are often more valuable than readily available physical cash. Some money is less valuable than other money. Crypto, for example, is not recognised as far or wide as regular money is. This Monopoly set that I bought a few years ago now, it cost me £20. You can still see that there is a little price label on it right here that says £20. It is a very special edition of Monopoly. It's the Somerset edition, which you can no longer buy, at least not first hand. It relates to me as I am from Somerset. But in order to buy this, I had to exchange £20 worth of pieces of paper, much like these, in order to obtain ownership of this game. But what if I opened it, took out some pieces of paper with exactly the same numbers on them, and then exchanged them for the game? I wouldn't be allowed to do that because people accept that this is fake money. And this is real. Well, what makes it real other than just the shared belief that it is real? And the answer is nothing. That's how you know you've got a social construct on your hand. Everyone knows and accepts that pound sterling is real money and that monopoly money is fake. Well, that's what it's all about, right? I'm going to assert that it does all depend on context. If I land here, it costs £200. I need to pay £200 of monopoly money in order to obtain this title deed that represents my ownership, this deed being another social construct. But what if, for the sake of argument, I don't have enough money and I try to pay with, let's say, 200 real pounds sterling? Trying to make a purchase with the wrong currency doesn't work. Is £200 worth of real money in this scenario valueless? Like, can I bribe the banker with this £20 worth of real money because it's technically worth more? I mean, the banker with this could buy their own Monopoly set. Furthermore, if I try and play the video game version of Monopoly, well, then bribery is kind of impossible. So, yes. In that case, Monopoly money is worth more than real money. What does it mean to be French? Now, you might well be thinking that French people come from France, and yeah, for the most part that's true, but as I'm going to discuss, investigate and prove, that's not necessarily the case. One immutable aspect about a person is their place of birth. That is just, something that a person is born with, that particular information, that they are from a particular place. And also that you cannot choose or change where you are born. I myself was born less than a mile away from where I'm sitting right now, in Musgrove Park Hospital. That makes me English and British. Or does it? Well, my parents are both English, so that must make me English. But what if one of them was French? Would I then be half French, even though I was still born in England? Also, given that I have lived in England my entire life, and apart from delving into conjugation tables for my own private pleasures. Ah, yes, the third conjugation, using vendre as an example. My knowledge of the French language is still limited, and culturally I would still be considered English. Right? What if I was born in France and then brought to England as a baby and then grew up and lived my life here? Like, would I be English or French? Because my upbringing would be culturally English, and I speak English, and my parents are English. Or, here's the real question, what if I, as myself, moved to France, immersed myself in the culture and the language, and took a citizenship test to become legally French? This is a thing that people can do. Legally, you can identify as a different nationality to the one you were given at birth. I know a few people who are in fact dual nationals, and they are kind of what got me thinking about this whole line of reasoning. Like, what makes someone the nationality that we think they are? What makes social constructs so important in our lives? These things that we think are immutable are actually subject to a lot of external observation kind of objectivity and change. What I'm saying is, although you can't change the country that you were born in, nationality is the cultural concept that arose around belonging to a country. Countries themselves are also social constructs. And you might be thinking, well, that's just mad, because a country is a landmass. You can't change that, like, societally. But actually, yes. What if the borders that are drawn on the map suddenly, shift and change? Countries have changed their borders over the years. Countries have divided over the years. Think of the former Yugoslavia that is now like 5 different countries or something crazy like that. Like, what if I'm living in France and then suddenly a new state is created called the People's Democratic Republic of Gaul? Like, what nationality do I call myself then, after I've gone through the trouble of becoming French? By the way, this is also why I think passports are bullshit. Like, I am a citizen of the planet Earth. And FYI, I have a clear criminal record. Why should I need an expensive piece of paper that would have to be constructed on a lie? Because in my country, my gender is not legally recognized, so I have to lie in order to obtain a passport. Just so that I can go somewhere nice on holiday a little further away from where I would be able to normally go. Like, it's my fucking earth too. Give me rights to roam around a little bit. This ruler is 12 inches long because people within society have decided and then accepted the value of an inch. It is also 30 centimeters long. That's because society, again, has decided and accepted the value of a centimetre and what 30 of those equate to. It is not, however, 16.5 flops, because although somebody could divide this ruler into 16.5 equal pieces, society doesn't recognise the floor pick measurement system, which is a huge travesty. Hashtag save the flops. But the point is understanding that while something may well be a social construct, it is still real and useful and used by people in society. Let's talk about age. Age is not a social construct. Birthday celebrations, cake, silly hats, presents, oh yes, that's definitely a social custom that was constructed around the idea of age and the tracking of measurements of time. But age itself, well, you can't change how old you are. Does anyone remember when Ben Shapiro was in that gender debate against a 22-year-old college student and in faith asked them why they couldn't identify as 60? No amount of social constructs or good cosmetic surgeons can change your date of birth, just as much as, changing your nationality still doesn't change your place of birth. And he's so smug about this whole interaction when he thinks he's just won that entire debate, when he didn't realise that what he's actually done is just compared apples to orange Fanta. Are you starting to get it yet? What is and is not a social construct? Every system of measurement we use, weights, distances, numbers, time, yes, even time. I'll leave a little link to a video that accurately describes how time is and is not a social construct. How, although the passage of time and things moving through space-time is not a social construct, the way we measure time, minutes, hours, days, watches, calendars, these are social constructs. As I was editing, I thought of a really good example of this. So let's take today's date. It's the 9th of September. And someone who's born today, the next time the 7th of September rolls around, that person will be 1 year old, right? We track how old that person is by the date. The same cannot be said of someone whose birthday is the 29th of February. The next time that date rolls around, that person is 4 years older, because that's how long it takes the Earth to revolve around the Sun and reach another 29th of February. The way that the calendar is constructed is a social paradigm because of the way that leap years function. It doesn't make that person 1 year older the next time they have a birthday. They are 4 years older. Like, their physical growth hasn't, magically slowed just because that person has a rather unique birthday. The date of their birth, the birthday, the social construct of the calendar itself, while usually is the basis that we use to track a person's age, for these individuals it just isn't. And that's kind of the difference between time, the social construct, and time, the real passage of things moving within space forwards in time. So I've made a case for why, if a person gives birth, that they are not necessarily called mother, even though functionally and biologically they may have imbued their DNA to this offspring. Biological reality is that this person is a direct ancestor. The social category, well, that's less clear and is given more context based on what happens next as a social reaction to giving birth, i.e. raising the child by bringing this whole thing back to race and gender. When a person is born, they do have a set of attributes that are innate and immutable, right? I mean, DNA variations determine a person's sex or skin colour, but not their gender or race. These are the social constructs that have arisen around these biological features, how we sort people into categories. However, as should be obvious by now, the biological reality of what someone is born with is not a direct link to how they are treated within society. A trans woman, for example, is seen in society by people as a woman and is treated as a woman as she would like to be. And although these patterns do have their history in biological differences, that is not the case for her. Similarly with race, I'm not going to say that a person can change their race or anything like that. We're not having that type of discussion. What I'm saying is the concept of race has changed over time. For someone who, for example, in 3,000 years ago, ancient Greece, for them to consider somebody from the British Isles the same race as them wouldn't happen. Now, they would all be considered the same Caucasian white people race. So that's how the concept of race can change. And it's important to recognise the difference because that's how we in society do interact with each other. And that is the thing that we can and sometimes do change. And besides which, if we stopped paying so much attention to gender, we'd have no more need for these ridiculous reveal parties that tend to blow up in everybody's faces, which is truly the scourge of the earth. Let's not do that anymore. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope that I have provided some adequate explanation for all this. So thank you for sticking with me. I will see you all very soon. Non-binary is valid, goddammit, except in the eyes of the United Kingdom Passport Service. Bye! Now, as a leftist making a YouTube video, I promise to do my makeup before I... Fucking hell. Do not shut up ever. Wait for the neighbours to fucking shut up. Well, I wouldn't be allowed to do that because he... And took a citizenship test. The cultural concept that arose out... Oh, shut up.